And now I am going to turn things over to Nashir, who will be introducing our speaker. Nashir is the professor in the McCormick Department, in the Department of Communications, and in the Kellogg School of Management. But in addition to that, Nashir is also the director of the Science of Networks in Communities research group at Northwestern, and the president-elect of the International Communication Association. So Nashir, was quite the resume here. Thank you so much for joining us, Nashir, and I am going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Megan. I think the affiliation that I'm probably even more proud of, besides the ones you mentioned, is that I've also been affiliated with NICO ever since I got here, and it's one of those affiliations that I'm very proud of. And so I'm delighted to have this opportunity to participate and moderate a NICO event. And in particular, I'm delighted to welcome back my old friend, Balasz Vedres, who I have known at least since 2001, when he was a graduate student at Columbia, and his advisor, David Stark, and I had just received an NSF grant to study resilience in the aftermath of the 9/11 bombings in New York City, and air crash in New York City, that led me to first get intrigued by Balash's work. And I can tell you that every single opportunity I've had since then has been a real treat, because Balasz is that rare combination of someone who is incredibly a deep thinker and combines that with some amazing analytical sophistication. And today he's right now the associate professor at the Oxford Internet Institute at Oxford in the UK, where he also directs their PhD program. They call it the DPhil program on social data science. Before that, he was a founder and former director of the Center for Network Science at the Central European University. I recall vividly Brian and myself both being at an event that Balasz and his colleagues Laszlo Barbashi and others had invited us to when they kicked off that Center for Network Science at the Central European University. His work has been recognized by many, many awards. He's been elected as a member of the European Academy of Sociology. He's won the Viviana Zelizo Award for the best article in economic sociology from the American Sociological Association, the Carl Polanyi Prize from the Hungarian Sociological Association, the Richard Scott Award for distinguished scholarship from the OOW, the Organizations, Occupations, and Work section of the American Sociological Association, and the list just goes on. There are several others, including some that are in Hungarian that I'm afraid that I'll butcher the name, so I'm going to not embarrass myself further there. What I would say, though, is that in addition to being a longtime friend of mine, he's actually been a longtime friend of Northwestern and NICO in particular. He spent half a year in 2015 in residence at NICO and was literally hours away from getting on a flight to Evanston last year to join the Ansonic NICO workshop that we were hosting, that Brian, myself, and our colleagues in Santa Barbara and USC were getting ready to host. And with hours to spare, we had to send an email to all the participants, including Balasz, that because of the pandemic, we had to reschedule, or at least at the time, postpone that workshop, which I still hope we will have a chance to welcome Balasz and others back on campus at some point. So with that as the background, what I want to just frame this particular topic that Balasz is going to talk about today. Balasz has worked on so many different areas, all the way from looking at networks and creativity amongst jazz musicians, to looking at creativity amongst video game software developers. In fact, just last week, literally, I invited Balasz to give a talk to one of the master's program courses that I'm teaching right now at Northwestern to talk about all of that stuff. But today he's going to talk about his latest work. And what I think is really interesting about it is that just as many of us at Northwestern are getting intrigued by the idea of working not just in terms of how a human works with a robot or with an AI agent, but how human AI teaming and collaboration needs to be seen as something that is emerging and not yet fully understood. Of course, there on the scene is Balasz with a study that he's going to tell us today about how trust and creativity gets impacted when you have an AI bot working along with human editors on Wikipedia. So with that, trust, creativity, and AI, bots on the Wikipedia. Balash, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to see every one of you, although just virtually. Let me just start my screen share in a minute. Oops, sorry. Starting my presentation right here and getting on to the share. We have been doing this for years now. It's just never getting any better. So thank you again for the invitation. I would like to talk about bots and humans together. This is our team. We have been doing this, undertaking this project for about 6 months now with Osha Vashahai from Warwick, Linda Lee from University of Oxford, and myself. So the starting point for us that really intrigued us is a fundamental transformation in technology. From tools, technology is becoming from tools, rather our peers. Simply just using tools to collaborate had been the past, but the recent developments in AI is something that is more fundamental than that. I guess the more fundamental technological transformation that we had seen with the digital transformation before over the last 20 years. So what is happening and why is this transformation why is it fundamentally disruptive? I think it is interesting for the first time to see non-human collaborators embedded in collaboration networks, increasingly gaining capacities to collaborate that is similar to human capacities. Human networking, the way we connect to one another in emergent social systems, is something that had been evolving for at least 60 million years. If we compare animal social networks, a growing subfield of network science, and try to learn the basic regularities from animal social networks, we discover that species that had been in the evolutionary tree up to about 60 million years back behave in extremely similar ways to humans. Hierarchy, homogeneity, closure, and a limited vision in understanding network ties. These are all things that we have discovered with animal social networks to behave the same way as humans behave in networking. So now that we have AI, artificial agents embedded in networks, I guess for the first time in 60 million years, we have agents who would behave with different fundamental rules, with different instincts, if at all there are instincts there with artificial agents, in making links and participating in links. So I would like to redirect the discussion from understanding the human-AI interaction, that dyad, to zoom out to triadic or larger network context, understand the impact of the artificial agent on the human-to-human link. There had been work towards this, and it's an exciting and growing field, and several colleagues there at NICO and Sonic work about this problem. For example, Nicholas Christakis and co-authors have worked on understanding human collaboration with artificial agents and found that embedding bots in human communities helps collaboration by encouraging human-to-human cooperation and discouraging the defection, the slacking, the free rider behavior of humans, the red dots on these network charts. So bots seem to be helpful in human communities. These were experimental studies. Another experimental study by Bruce Kogut and co-authors at Columbia University looked at the Super Mario video game and embedded artificial agents in groups playing this game, and found that maybe bots not so helpful, or not so helpful after all. In this context, in the Super Mario game, the introduction of the AI agent reduced team performance and decreased team coordination, trust, and individual effort. So the findings are a bit mixed here, but this was another experimental study. What we are looking at, zooming a bit more closer to our field, is hybrid networks in the wild. What happens in real social systems that emerge without the participation of researchers when machines, artificial agents are organically embedded in an emerging social system. A definitive review in Nature that looked at machine behavior outlined the system of attention, a conceptual system of what we should be looking at. There is individual machine behavior. That's the domain of computer science to understand. And then collective machine behavior, the exciting domain of social robotics, still computer science. And then we zoom out to the hybrid human-machine behavior ecosystem with attention also on the human-to-human links in this ecosystem. That is what we are looking at now. The idea of this whole project, to a large extent, came from a publication from Milena Tsvetkova and co-authors, looking at hybrid systems and recognizing technological systems around us as, in fact, triadic fundamental structures of human, and artificial triads. Lots of the systems that we are using, platforms of collaboration, can be characterized by some kind of a triadic constellation of information gathering, collaboration, information, passing information on, accessing data, and so on. And these triads are specific and very characteristic of various platforms. This is the idea that we are taking on. We are looking at a fundamental triad. And I argue that to understand hybrid artificial human social systems in the wild, we need to understand a fundamental triad that I would call the ABC triad. The ABC triad is very interesting, and it's very different from triads before. Author, bot, and collaborator. In the wild, we have artificial agents, bots, that are actually owned by or developed by or introduced by somebody, a human member of the system, which we call the author. And there is a collaborator, a generalized third part of the triad. You can expand this network on with many triads like this. But what is fundamentally interesting about this is the multiplexity. We have collaboration ties between all three members of the triad. And these are the systems that are truly exciting when bots are participating in collaborations the same way, or to an extent, the similar way as humans do. But there is another very different link, which is an ownership or authority link from the author to the bot. Bots are such team members that can be owned by, controlled completely by somebody else. And this is new. We never had human members in collaboration systems that were owned or completely controlled, developed by some of the other members of the collaborative team. And if you look at this little publication down here, Social Structure for Multiple Networks, the second part on role structures from Borman White, this publication developed the notion of role structures and semigroups. It's really important to look at the combinations of roles, and ownership and collaboration. The combination of these in this triad creates some really interesting situations that are qualitatively different from previous technological systems. How? Well, let's take a look at that as we think about specific hypotheses now about the author-collaborator dyad. There had been many projects about the author-bot, the human-bot connection, but now we are looking at the human-to-human connection in the presence of artificial agents. What kind of mechanisms can we expect to operate in such systems? Well, let's start from each end of the triangle. Start with author-centered mechanisms. The author. Well, the author's interest might shift towards developing a bot, might shift towards a more technological focus, and this can crowd out collaboration with C. So remember, we are thinking about mechanisms on the impact on the AC dyad, the human-to-human dyad, in the presence of artificial agents. So the first mechanism I would call the classic technological hypotheses 20 years ago, the way we were thinking about the internet, is that spending time with technology crowds out social ties. So the AC dyad is impacted because the development of the bot takes time away from collaboration. The author's division of labor with the bot might also replace collaboration with C. We introduce bots for a reason. We introduce bots to take over work, and this work might be something that we have done before with the collaborator, with a human collaborator. So there might be a natural crowding out and sense of a division of labor with the bot. Now, there might be bot-centered mechanisms of how the human-to-human collaboration is impacted. For example, the bot's collaboration with the other human might replace the human's collaboration with the author, C's collaboration with A. Again, just because the bot is there for a reason, and maybe that collaboration is now taking over something that the humans had been doing. And then, very importantly, and this is something that we see a lot of evidence for in Wikipedia, bots might behave in a way that's perceived as negative, as hostile, as something not collaborative and not positive, or not taken as positive by C. And this might weaken the collaboration of C with A through transitivity as the owner of the bot. And then finally, there might be collaborator-centered mechanisms. The collaborator itself might lack trust in the bot in general in artificial agents, and that might weaken again through transitivity and trust in A. And finally, the collaborator's lack of control over the bot might result in collaboration, coordination, and all kinds of other issues that might break down collaboration with A. So these were the mechanisms that we are thinking about. At this point, we don't have a good test for all of these, but some of these. When we talk about triads, of course, we want to take the triad to a network and to have an image, have a little toy model of what we expect to happen. So think about two collaborators in this network. These are all humans at this point, A1 and A2, who are thinking about developing and including a bot in the collaborative system. So A1 develops a bot, and that might result in the loss of some of the ties. A2 develops a bot, might result in the loss of some ties and maybe the birth of some new ties. So social systems are reconfiguring in the face of introducing bots. So let's think about specific hypotheses that we can actually test. We are looking at the context of Wikipedia, and we test two kinds of hypotheses here. One is a weak hypothesis of technological impact. This would be the classic crowding out effect. The bot release in the system will be followed by a dip in the AC, the author collaborator collaboration. So if you introduce a bot, your human collaborations will be weakened. So that in some sense, the frequency, the strength, the presence of these collaborations will suffer. The second hypothesis is a bit stronger, but we actually say it's the amount of activity from the bot that has a negative impact, a negative association with the human-to-human collaboration. It's a bit stronger. It somehow implies that bot is not something that could be replaced by any other activity. Just if you spend much more time on stamp collecting or train marching, your friendships and collaborations with others might suffer because you spend so much time on this activity. But bots might be different. So we look at bot activity specifically and the amount of bot activity and its impact on human collaboration. So let's get to the empirical aspects of this. Getting a bot on Wikipedia, that's our context. That's the way in which we trace bots in the wild. Wikipedia is a fantastic context. It's a field where bots and humans had been working together for more than 10 years. It's a key case. Human collaboration and bot collaboration is recorded with very detailed timestamps, and human bot ownership is also recorded. Bots are identified unambiguously, unlike on Twitter or other social media, and bot edits are also identified. And bots can actually edit the same pages that humans edit, so they gain on capacities that are similar to some extent to humans. If you look at the complete universe of Wikipedia, this was a few years ago when this was collected, about 12% of the edits are made by bots. which is significant. It's probably the second largest group after the top 1,000 editors, and about 1,000 bots is what we have on Wikipedia. So bots are comparable to the top 1,000 editors in a way. Bots on Wikipedia had seen some high-profile discussion. A Wall Street Journal article was going after a Swedish developer who developed a bot that created about 8% of the entire Wikipedia by adding pages on obscure animals and species that nobody is really interested in, not very charismatic, not tigers or elephants, but some kind of a worm or insect, but nevertheless important to some readers, and they should be featured in an encyclopedia, as the argument goes. Nevertheless, the discussions about what bots to allow and what bots should be allowed to accomplish on Wikipedia has seen some really heated discussion. Is currently and ever since a very active and very vibrant discussion on Wikipedia, what bots should be able to do and what bots should be allowed to function and be unleashed on Wikipedia. What kind of data do we have? We have collected a lot of data, the entire history of Wikipedia edits from 2002 to 2020, with 885 bots from 768 bot owners. We only kept those bots and bot owners that had a registration date, so we definitely know when the bot was unleashed, and the bot owner had at least 6 months of activity before the bot creation. So we can trace the human-to-human collaborations before the bot was created. The first thing that we need to conceptualize is tie strength to understand how human-to-human ties are impacted by bots. So we collected all the pages where the bot owner was active in a given month and recorded all the other human contributors on those pages and created a tie strength with the bot owner and its authors. When we multiply the numbers of edits and sizes of edits for both the bot owner and the partners to get a sense of how strong the connection was. We do that for each page, and then we aggregate for the dyad to have a monthly record of how strong the collaboration was between the bot owner and the author. So more frequent and larger edits from both sides create a stronger tie. Now, because we want to understand how this dyadic behavior of the bot owner relates to matching users, we want to normalize this with something. We went after to create a data set of matching users, people who had a similar career on Wikipedia, a similar level of activity, working on similar pages, and then we collected at least 10 matching users for each of the bot owners to collect all the dyads of the matching users as well. So this is the data set that we have compiled after all of this. About 2 million dyads, 2 million collaborations on Wikipedia. When we look at all collaborations, any size and any frequency. Of course, these are not all meaningful, strong collaborations. So we introduce two other ways of filtering the data. One is a frequency filtering, looking at the 12 preceding months to introducing the bot. We want to see activity in at least 6 of those months, 9 of those months, or all 12 of those months. Similarly, we introduced the filtering, a restriction to look at the top 50 percentile, the top half, the top 25, or the top 10% in terms of tie strength. And we can combine these two to get to our most restrictive filtering when we look at the top 10% strongest ties that have seen activity in every one of the 12 months before the bot was introduced. That gets us to 1,752 dyads. So how do we track impact? It turns out it's not so simple, of course, to understand how does an event impact on a dyadic collaboration. We are tracing the collaborations as they go. 0 is the moment the bot was introduced, and we have each month before and then after the bot was introduced. And you can see these collaboration intensities normalized and log collaboration intensities for a bunch of users. You see this diversity. Sometimes collaboration stops as the bot was introduced, or right after, or it suffers a hit but comes back up, or there's no change. So we have thousands and thousands of these stories that we are tracing. Of course, there are some classic ways to do that. This article was the one where the ARIMA models were introduced in understanding time series, conceptualizing the event. Is it a pulse or is it a step? We basically have you can consider our intervention as a step, because now there's a bot that's established and it stays until a while, and maybe it's a step, but it goes down. So we are open to seeing what kind of impact this would show in the dyadic collaborations. We are inspired by works in biology, the BACI design, the before, after, and then control intervention. We are looking at a change in our data, but also comparing to another comparable and matched population when there was no real change. We can just align these observations by time and then trace the difference. This is very much what influenced our study design. So let's look at some real data. This is all the bot owners and all the any strength of collaboration, and the moment of bot introduction is the 0 here. So it looks like there's a big hit. There's a big decrease in this normalized logged collaboration strength scale, orders of magnitude loss, it seems, and it seems to start before the bot was introduced. Well, let's place it together with the matched users. This is the matched users. It turns out if you're tracing collaborations over a period of time, and then you stop at a moment and then wait to see what happens to these collaborations, even in a control populations, the strength of these collaborations tend to drop down, because you're not allowing new collaborations to come in, and previous collaborations just by chance fade out. So this is the matched user population that we normalize our data by. And once we normalize it by, this is the red curve, we still see some, something different from a flat line. It is pretty flat until the bot, and then we see a drop, and maybe it's coming back. So there seems to be some impact. This is what we investigate now with statistical methods. First of all, looking at all the cuts of the data by frequency and by the strength of tie, we do see a similar pattern. Again, the red curve here is the normalized collaboration strength. When we normalize the bot owners' dyads with the matched users' dyads. This is the first perspective to statistically test collaboration after the bot. When we merge our data, merge our bot owner and matched user data together, introduce dummy variables for the particular months, here just 3 months before and 3 months after, and add an interaction that represents the bot owner as opposed to the matched user. So if you look at this model, in general, the bot owner has a negative intercept. The months following the bot introduction, 1 and 2, as opposed to -1 and -2, they have a negative coefficient, and then the interaction is negative. So there is a drop after we follow the collaborations, both for the matched and the bot users. But for the bot owners, there's a significantly bigger drop after this cutting line, after the introduction of the bot. So there seems to be a significant disadvantage here for the bot owners. There seems to be a hit to the collaboration strength. That's probably just because the fact that they are bot owners and not the matched users. We can replicate this to various cuts in frequency and tie strength, and we see the same pattern. There is a distinctive and highly significant negative prediction for the bot owners compared to the matched users. And maybe this difference is diminishing after 3 months. Here's another way of looking at the same idea, still testing the first hypothesis, whether the release of the bot results in a loss of collaborations. We are looking at the normalized collaboration strength now. When we normalize each of the bot owners' collaborations with the matched users' collaboration strength, pooled average collaboration strength for the same month, this should be something closer to a real effect. And here we also introduce fixed effects for the particular bot owners. So we take away the effect, the unobserved heterogeneity of the bot owner level. What we see here, again, particularly after the second and the third month, there's a big hit. There's a big drop in collaboration intensity. We can zoom out to a bigger time span, the same method, modeling with fixed effects for bot owners, looking at the particular months, how they differ in terms of collaboration intensity. And this is the normalized collaboration, normalized with the matched users. You can really see now the big hit that introducing the bot introduction means for collaboration strength. There's a huge drop in the months 1 to 5, and maybe a rebound from 7 to 11. So the first hypothesis seems to have some support, and there's evidence for collaborations to suffer as a bot is introduced. How about bot activity? The interesting thing here is that we have data on how many edits the bots have accomplished, how much impact the bots actually had on Wikipedia. And we can relate this, the size of this impact, the size of activity for the bot that was introduced on the to the collaboration strength of the bot owner to other human collaborators. We are now only looking at the months after the bot was introduced. The red chart shows the normalized collaboration strength as a function of the size of the bot's edits. So how active is the bot? That's the x-axis. And how how strong is the collaboration between the bot owner and other human collaborators after the bot? That's the y-axis. The prediction is sloping down. And you see the linear prediction is a significant negative. So every order of magnitude increase in the bot's activity leads to half an order of magnitude decrease in the human-to-human collaboration. We have replicated this with the matching dyads, adding the bot to not the particular, it's not a bot owned by the matching user because they have no bots, but it's a bot owned by the closest user to them, the user to which we were matching them to. So there shouldn't be any impact of the bot activity. These people are not even aware that there is a bot. And correspondingly, we do not see any negative impact there. It's an insignificant relationship. And then finally, we have looked at the probability that the collaboration would be entirely lost. And here we focus on 3 shades of strength of collaboration, the top half, the top 25%, or the top 10% in terms of the strength of collaboration. What's the probability that there was a collaboration before the bot, strong and maybe very strong, and there's no collaboration over the 12-month period that follows the introduction of the bot? So basically the collaboration is lost, is dead. This probability is significantly related to the size of the bot's activity. And the stronger the tie, it seems the stronger the impact for the 75 and 90, so the top 25, top 10%, the odds ratio is 1.7 or 1.5. So every increase, order of magnitude increase in the bot's activity leads to a 1.7 or 1.5 odds of losing the collaboration. So that's quite strong. And again, comparing it to the matched sample where there were no bots introduced, we see no relationship, maybe even a negative relationship. We shouldn't see anything, definitely not a positive relationship. And that is the case. So it seems that it's deeper than just the time spent on fiddling with a bot and not spending that time editing pages with your peers. There is something subsequent that's related to the amount of the activity that the bot is accomplishing that has a negative impact on the bot owner and other collaborators' dyads. So just to conclude and open the floor for discussions, I think these are some interesting first steps to understand hybrid networks in the wild as opposed to in experiments. It seems that bot introduction is associated with subsequent loss of human collaboration. Although this loss might be temporary, it seems that within a year there's a rebound. We need further research to understand how bot owners' features, maybe the pages that they tend to edit or the interest in terms of topics influences this. We also have seen that bot activity, the actual activity that the bots are accomplishing, is associated with lower human collaboration, tie strength, and a higher probability for losing the collaboration. Here we need to further look into understanding bot activity. There are specialties of bots on Wikipedia, special various functions that they can pursue. And we can look at the actual encounter of human collaborators and bots on particular pages, and even trace text about conflicts and dissatisfaction about bots. There are many, many conflicts and complaints about bot activity on Wikipedia. And in general, we need a closer analysis of the mechanisms in the ABC triad, starting out from each edge of the triangle, the author, the bot, and the authors, the collaborators. We plan further analysis for the network structure, the structural understanding above the triad. What happens to communities? What happens to long distance paths and potentials for creativity? And then we need to further understand the outcomes. Collaborations might be lost, but maybe collaborations lost does not have an impact on quality, maybe a positive impact on quality. So what is the bottom line here? What is the bottom line in terms of the quality of pages that are getting created, the success of the work that comes out, and overall level of creativity that we see on Wikipedia? And I think with this, I stop here and open the floor for discussion. I'm really curious about your comments and questions. Let me just stop my screen share. And over to you. Thank you. I keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A as well. So
perfect. Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. I know you can't hear everybody clapping, but we all are. And just a reminder to our attendees, if you have any comments or questions for our speaker, please, we would love to make this more discussion based. So please use that Q&A feature. We'd love to.
I do already see a question here.
Yes.
So Heejin Yon, if I hope I'm pronouncing that right, asks what are the particular things that discourage humans to collaborate with bots? What are the most frequent things that human editors complain about bots' activities? I think that's a great question. This is something that we are just going after now. The complaints are often bots undoing edits, so bots taking something as vandalism, and then bots introducing templates and various link sections and whatnot on pages that are half-baked or go against conventions. There's a lot of discussion when the bot owner is brought in. The bot owner needs to tune the algorithm of the bot. And there's a lot of discovery about what kind of content should be on Wikipedia that our bots putting up. There were lots of automated page uploads by bots about US cities, about animal species, and so on. So there's a lot of discussion on relevance. Do we need this in Wikipedia? Should this be a page? Should this be something new? Don't we have this already? And then one funny thing that people complained about was that a Wikipedia bot introduced quotes from Lord of the Rings as something relevant to discuss a particular animal species. And human editors thought that should not be there. But the bot did not have an awareness that Lord of the Rings is not scientific or not serious. So lots of discussions about that.
Hey, Balaj.
Hi,
Hey,
Brian.
great. Hey, so look, I really enjoyed all the things you had to talk about. I think, I felt as if we got a little glimpse of the future.
Yeah.
And a few things that were going through my mind are, if you had to extrapolate from this case,
Yeah.
one would be, if you were going to give advice to Wikipedia, what would be the actionable advice for them, to improve their system, to improve knowledge? And then if you had to think about how it could be, what you found could be taken to other applications in other contexts, what might those be? I'm very curious about sort of the bigger implications of what we should be thinking about given, this research.
Yeah, I think what I would look at as an advice to Wikipedia is something about communities. Introducing a bot might take away the cohesiveness of an editor community. So even though you think a bot would increase efficiency by so much because a bot is able to upload 10,000 pages a day, but it might also take away the more substantive creativity and strategic thinking about content, because it weakens the core cohesiveness of a thematic cluster, like enthusiasts writing about the First World War. They introduce a bot because they think it's now more efficient than to establish a page about each, kind of weapon. But they might find their core collaborating links being weakened. And then the whole community might become less active or might become less vibrant, maybe might become less capable of bringing in new ideas at the next iteration of the encyclopedia, the Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. So I would be concerned of sacrificing this longer-term cohesiveness and creativity for this short-term efficiency gain that we have when we introduce these artificial assistants.
Mm-hmm. Before you answer the other part of the question, very quickly, if I could respond to that.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, what do you think could be done in the system that could capture the efficiency of the bot, but not undermine the cohesiveness of the human actors? Like what might you do? Is there an intervention? Is there some way in which the system that's currently being used could be adapted to deal with this new problem that you've identified?
That's a great question. And I think if it's really true that the amount of edits that bots do is something that discourage the human-to-human links, maybe I would start with a very stepped-in approach and say, if you have a new bot, I would limit the number of edits it can do to something. Like it's not completely unleashed in the first month, because that's what we see. That the range of activity for the bots is very unbounded. It's like a power law function. Some bots are unleashed and they do millions of edits immediately. So they have a more phased-in, slower approach when you unleash a new bot. If the amount is really something that impacts the probability of losing human-to-human collaborations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I asked two questions. Let's come back to my second question about other applications if we can a little bit later. I just want to make sure that other people who are now typing in their questions have a chance to hear your response. So I don't know if you prefer me to read the question out loud or if you'd like to do it and then respond to it yourself.
Please
So
go ahead,
over to
Brian, because I'm afraid I'm missing some questions. I'm not sure I see all of them.
Okay, so this one comes from Keosuke, and here's the question. are there cases where bots owned by a group of authors instead of an author? If so, would you think that the impact that you saw in collaboration ties would differ?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, as far as I know, there needs to be one owner for the bot on Wikipedia, and we don't see collective authorship of bots. But if it's interesting to find out whether there is strong collaboration between people exactly to develop a bot, and that's something that we are about to find out by trying to understand the actual pages that the bot owners are really active on just before launching the bot. Or is their attention turning to very specific pages about programming bots on Wikipedia before they launch the bot? And maybe there is a collaborator community around that right there. And maybe to trace whether there is a cluster of the bot owner or bot operator enthusiasts on Wikipedia really becoming a network cluster there. So that's something that we would like to understand. We don't have a good understanding of that yet.
Thank you. Yeah, on that point, Balasz, I could imagine that if it was owned by a community of authors, the community might find some ways to fine tune their interaction with the bot that really helps them do what they want to do better as a community.
Yeah.
In the sense that, maybe they could tune the bot so it does free them up to think more about the creative aspects of editing rather than the functional ones. And so
I guess the comment from Taha Yassiri is very relevant here. Just see it right now. Taha is a researcher, a very accomplished researcher of Wikipedia data, and he just says, running a bot requires much more coordination between bot runners. Have you tracked activities on policy pages and talk pages where these coordinations happen? Maybe more collaboration to be seen there. I think it's a great comment, and that's exactly what we are starting to do now. We are tracing the forum discussions about bots, and that's a very rich data source where people complain or ask for tuning the algorithm or shutting down a bot or giving a pause to a bot. So I guess that's where we are going. I think that's a very rich data source of the actual text of discussions will be our next data point.
Okay. While we're waiting for some other questions to come in, maybe we could talk about, what other applications do you see for this line of research?
Yeah, I think what I would like to find out is whether there are some kinds of bots that can shape human collaborations in ways that are beneficial, even if it's about disrupting human-to-human collaborations. We know that creativity requires open networks and not so much closure. So one hope that I have to look at hybrid systems is maybe bots are beneficial in some disruption of human-to-human collaboration, exactly when they ease up a bit the closure and the very high clustering that might happen and the groupthink that might result from that. So I would like to understand cases where bots are introduced as an unintended consequence. Some of the human-to-human collaboration is weakening, but that weakening is actually boosting creativity because it takes away from the groupthink closure aspect in the evolution of collaboration networks. I think one application might be to find bots that are not as disruptive, that they would destroy a creative field, but rather just disruptive to the extent, and they are deployed in a way that they are disruptive to the extent that they ease up the groupthink aspects of collective knowledge networks.
So you mentioned this word deploy. I think that's a really important part of the response. So like, how would you deploy that? So as you're talking, like what's going through my mind is, oh yeah, that's really pretty interesting, because creatives always have a tendency to kind of like get into a tightly knit cluster after working with people for a period of time for a lot of different reasons. And then, you get like, by the time you're through the third iteration, you're really not coming up with new stuff. So maybe the bots introduce something new, but like, how would the bots know what's new to introduce? Like, would they grab things at random? What would be?
They wouldn't. Yeah, I think what I would think of as a task here is to understand what exactly is the causal element that's causing the dip in the human-to-human collaborations. What is it about the amount of activity in the bots that's discouraging those dyads, those human dyads? I don't think we have a good answer for that yet. But once we have an answer for that, we can probably, it's a very small thing, it's a very threshold process. We can tune the way in which bots work. Maybe we need to introduce some delay so that they're not interacting so fast and so efficiently. As Christakis' research has shown, if bots sometimes show a bit of hesitation and maybe make artificial errors that they acknowledge and undo, so they show some human-like face, maybe that helps not to hurt so much the human-to-human collaborations. So probably these will be small things because these are very complex threshold processes. But we don't yet know what exactly is the causal element that's discouraging collaborations.
You know, now that you mention this, part of it, what do you know about the training of the bots themselves and the process by which they're trained on Wikipedia? Because, you know, if you're going to talk about having the bots do different things, you also have to think about how they're trained, because maybe the outcome of the research is itself based on the protocols that the bots are using. Not that those protocols are not and can be specific to bots, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's some of our next steps. At this point, we are pretty agnostic about what the bots are actually doing. Just look at the number of bytes they are introducing on the first year. So I guess that's the next thing we need to understand, and that's the next part of our agenda, to understand variability on the kinds of bots, because there's a range of bots on Wikipedia, not one kind, and the various capabilities. So at least we want to distinguish between them when we make our predictions.
Yeah, that would certainly be a first step. Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. You know, one of the other things, you know, just to mention this, is so much of the world of creativity is about, you know, you want to put things together that haven't been put together before, and we're innovating faster than ever. So there's even more things out there, which creates a potential to put whole new combinations together that we never thought of. But at the same time, with more and more possibilities, it's harder and harder to access all of them.
Yeah.
And this might be, I'd like to hear what you think about this. Is that a potential way for bots to help with human creativity? Because the bot is not going to be limited the way human beings are to, you know, what we remember and the things that we most recently saw, and a whole set of other kind of cognitive limitations that human beings have.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think the way in which us academics use AI-like systems is already like that. We want to be, you know, surprised in the sense that to step out of that little cluster of literature that we have been looking into all the time, to get that, you know, navigate the links, to, you know, ask Google Scholar to, you know, throw up the most recent citation to something. So I guess that's exactly the future, and it would be great to look at other domains as well, not just Wikipedia, but music and arts as well.
You know, on that point, I know a lot of people out there are familiar with your work on jazz. Any ideas on? And just by the way, Megan is a jazz pianist and vocalist.
Oh,
so
wow, great.
this question is one that I've been saving for you, Megan. Any thoughts about how you could take what you learned from your own research and apply it to jazz? And I say jazz because jazz is like, it's a great artistic form, but, you know, for many people, it had its heyday.
Yeah.
And in its heyday, it split. And then both branches kind of lost popularity, relatively speaking. Could bots help bring back jazz?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was digging into the innovative fringes of jazz. There are people who play chord parts and algorithms and computer sounds and everything they want to combine into jazz, but they're very rarely successful. Um, Even though jazz is very innovative, it's also very conservative in terms of how the tools that you use can be different. When we looked at the most successful jazz sessions, their instrument combination was extremely close to the average. So anything in the particular sounds that you want to innovate is really hard to gain acceptance. So sometimes paradoxically, jazz, even though it's very innovative, it's also extremely conservative. So I guess algorithms could help coming up with combinations that are subtle, like combinations in rhythmic structures and timbres, and something that doesn't go very far away from the instruments that we always hear, piano, bass, and drums. That's 90% of
Right.
the jazz. So it would be great to see experimenters and whether they and how they can introduce algorithms to that.
Yeah, very interesting. Another thing as you were talking that kind of popped into my mind is, you could think of innovating jazz by changing something, adding new ingredients to jazz. But jazz could also be, in the way you're thinking about the world, added as an ingredient into other music. One of the biggest trends in music is not to blend like hip hop and pop music, but to have pop music with a very discrete change into hip hop for a minute, and then a discrete change back into pop music. And when you think about that, why couldn't you do that with jazz? And it hasn't been done.
Exactly. What we have looked at recently, what this reminds me of, is another branch of applied arts. It's board games. We looked at board games where the combinations, just like in jazz, you combine instruments, a trumpet, a saxophone, an accordion. In board games, you combine these mechanics: rolling a dice, pulling a card, drawing something, singing, dancing. And there's about 50 or so of those atomic mechanisms. And what we have found is that if you introduce technology, and their technology was a crowdfunding platform, to the traditional ways of doing board games, you boost up the activity that is trying to find new combinations. So you see suddenly an increase in these new combinations of mechanics. Suddenly it's rolling a dice plus dancing and singing and pulling a card, something that hasn't been paired before, just because the technology is different, just because it's now crowdfunding as opposed to a publishing house. So in that sense, I think creative fields can be revitalized by platforms and maybe even AI solutions, because it helps you stumble upon that new combination of these molecular mechanics. That is where the whole field is going next, because that's what we have seen in board games. It's not just crazy new things, but new things that then the whole field is going towards afterwards. So, that will be interesting to capture with the presence of some bots, AI solutions as well.
Very interesting. I feel like I've got a few more things I want to say, but I see we're running over time. So I have to thank you again and say, Balasz, this has been just a really, really provocative talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your thinking on this with us. You're always at the forefront. And we really appreciate you sharing your insights with us today. And we look forward to you coming back to NICO at some point in the future.
I would love to, yeah.
Yeah, anytime. The door is always open. And we're gonna, so that would be great. All right then. Hey everybody, let's congratulate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Balasz.